Hello everybody and welcome to Stats Perform's video preview of the second semi-final in the Champions League this season, featuring the might of Bayern Munich taking on plucky Lyon. A few numbers around just how strong Bayern have been this season. They've won their last 19 games in all competitions. They've won all 9 of the Champions League matches they've played this season. They put 8 goals past Barcelona in the quarter-final, as pretty much everyone will remember. And Robert Lewandowski, arguably the player of the season, has scored in his last 8 Champions League games in a row. It's a massive task for Lyon, but they can do it because they put out Juventus and they put out Manchester City. I'm joined today by Kevin Chroust and Tom Reynolds, who are going to look and delve a little bit deeper into what makes both of these teams tick. And we'll start off with Lyon. So over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Dunk. So if we kick it off with Provision, just looking at Lyon versus Man City from the quarterfinals and comparing them to the other quarterfinals that went on, Lyon were obviously dominated they had 28.8% possession, but managed to carve out a result and was very impressive at the end of the day. So just looking into the data, so we can see if we look at the sequence and possessions framework, just how unbelievable it actually was. So I think we should give some credit to Toko Ekambi as well, because we haven't spoken about him much in the build-up within these previews, and I thought he was very impressive against Man City with his arch curve runs against the last line of Man City's defence. He caused them a lot of problems. So yeah, shout out to him because I was very impressed with him, and he's on loan from Villarreal, so we'll see what happens with his future. So looking at the sequence data for Lyon from the quarterfinals, it was just insane. We can just have a look here. So if we look at the one that I've sorted, which is average sequence time measured in seconds, we can see that this is any sequence that leads to a shot. So there were 7 sequences from Lyon, which ties with Barcelona in the game against Bayern Munich. But 1.3 seconds they averaged per sequence, which compared to the average is 8.5. If we look at the sequence passes, this one to the right, 0.6 passes. So not on average, not even one whole pass in those 7 sequences compared to the average of 3. So we know that in football, looking through the research, the average sequence length is typically about 4 passes, and this is 0.6. If we look at the average sequence length, which is measured in meters, 4.9 meters. So essentially it's saying to us that they like to regain the ball high, and then within a matter of seconds, within not that many passes, they want to get a shot away on goal. And credit goes to AR as well. Like we highlighted it in one of the videos leading up to the previous game, where he hovers in that pocket and is able to confidently possess the ball and progressively move the ball forward. And he started a few breaks for him, and it's led to good opportunities. So he's been really impressive, and it'll be interesting to see what his future is in going forward. One of his strengths, as we already spoke about, is how comfortable he is in possession. He looks so composed, and being able to manipulate the ball well and move in possession forward for Lyon. If we just transition into edge and have a look at all the patterns that he's actually involved in, we can see that he receives the passes around the centre of midfield, which we highlighted in one of the previews. So if I just draw a section on here, we can just see a pattern already about how he receives the ball on his back foot and then plays out to the left-hand side. You can see almost every pattern here ends on the left-hand side of the pitch. And you can see by the length of each pass is that they're actually progressing the ball into really high locations, trying to get Cornet in possession. And obviously from there, they typically create an attack, a dangerous attack.
So those chains all lead to Bayern's right flank, which is usually expertly marshalled by Joshua Kimmich. He obviously had more joy playing as an attacker, really, against Barcelona. Obviously popped up, assisted by his fellow fullback, Alphonso Davies, in that game. Presumably, surely, he'd have more defending to do against Lyon in the semi-final. To look a bit closer at Kimmich and the whole of the team, over to you, Kev.
All right, thanks, Dunk. So we're going to switch over to Bayern now. And first, we're going to look at their playing styles across Champions League and Bundesliga. So this is what they look like for those 2 competitions combined. And we see all sorts of fast tempo play, quite a bit of high press, no surprise there, crossing. In their possession-based styles, they're not existing in maintenance a lot, so possession in their own half. They're really existing in more consequential possession of build-up and sustained threat. Now, like I said, this is for both of those competitions combined, and some things have changed in the lineup recently in Champions League with Pavard being out and Kimmich moving back to right back instead of being in the middle with Thiago. So what does that actually look like now in the last two matches? So this is showing just those matches for the quarters and the semis, the second leg against Chelsea, and then the semis. So we see the possession-based styles, they fall off a little bit. So we're not seeing quite as much build-up and sustained threat with Kimmich not being in the middle. We're seeing quite a bit more high press, so 14.5 involvements per match for high press regains, and that's 101% above the Champions League average. And then the really interesting part to me is this fast tempo just falls off completely. So they go from being a team that exists playing quite a bit above the competition average in fast tempo to falling to 11% but below. So what we want to do with these lineup changes is then drill down a little deeper into the actual player level involvements here. So if we switch back to both competitions as a whole, we're going to first look at high press regains. So we see that for those high press regains, no surprise, we've got those central midfielders and Lewandowski, who are really involved in those high press regains. Kimmich being a big part of it, Thiago, of course, being a big part of it. If we switch over to just the last two matches, Thiago's a really big part of it, but we've got Goretzka, who's replacing Kimmich in the middle, who's taking over. So we've got him, and then Lewandowski is still a pretty big part of it at 10%. So no surprise that Kimmich isn't a massive part of that, or as big of a part of it as he was before. So now we're going to look at sustained threat. This is for both competitions combined. And we see that we've got a lot of midfielders involved here. So when these players are on, this means that like Coutinho is when he's on the pitch, he's contributing 12% of their sustained threat. So it's Lewandowski, and then it's a handful of midfielders, right? So let's switch over to just the last two matches for sustained threat. And we see that it's Lewandowski at 16%, but then it's actually their outside backs. So we've got Kimmich at 15% and Alphonso Davies on the left at 12%. And then we fall into kind of the midfielders with Coutinho, Müller, those guys. And now we're going to look at fast tempo. So we're back to both competitions for the entire season. And we see that Kimmich, Thiago in the middle, and actually, interestingly enough, Pavard's out. So what does that look like in the last two matches? It's Thomas Müller, it's Coutinho, it's really those midfielders again. And then Davies is a big part of it as well. So with Goretzka filling in there at 10% as well. So what we're seeing is a shift to especially with sustained threat, a shift to the outside backs. And the next thing we want to look at is what this looks like in terms of patterns that actually are producing dangerous opportunities. So with pattern analysis, here we're looking at the entire season again. And what we see is just some really impressive efficiency and consistency with this German side. So we've got these combination plays coming from both sides. And these are funneling into the middle. So no surprise that Lewandowski's had the success he's had when you've got your most dangerous opportunities funneling into the penalty spot. And then we've got these lateral plays that are coming from wide. And we see that these are all originating kind of in the attacking third, which we saw how much sustained threat they had in these competitions. So no surprises there. However, if we go ahead and we click in and we want to look at only the last two matches, we're going to see something different. We want to bump this down a little bit. So we see evidence of what we were talking about earlier with sustained threat really coming from different areas. So rather than having those lateral involvements and those combination plays that were in tight in the penalty area originating within the attacking third, we've got these involvements that really involve the right back here, which would be Kimmich probably on this chain. And then on the left side, it's even heavier with Alphonso Davies coming in for his involvements in these, along with probably Thomas Muller in here. He had a heck of a game against Barca. So we're seeing a little different attack from Bayern with Kimmich playing on the right, and it's still resulting in plenty of efficiency though. So regardless of what kind of patterns, what kind of chains we're actually seeing out of Bayern, there's still plenty of efficiency. So we go back and recall that sustained threat was considerably down from what it was across Bundesliga and Champions League for the season, but there's still plenty coming from it. They scored 7 goals involving sustained threat against Barcelona. They scored a few against Chelsea as well. They're generating chances and goals out of high press as well. So a goal and a half per match in those last 2 matches, and 2 involving fast tempo. So it doesn't really matter how they do it, who's involved. This team's really set up to succeed and really dominate in the attacking third.
Yes, Kevin, you're right. They are set up to dominate. And as we've seen over the last few weeks and few months, really, Bayern do dominate. Probably the best team in Europe, if not the world, in 2020. A very truncated year, but they can end this season in style if they win the next 2 games. It's going to be a massive task for Lyon, but hopefully we've shown that, Lyon have managed to find chinks in the armour of both Juve and Man City and pull something special off. If they can do it this time against Bayern, it really will be one of the biggest surprises for a long time in the game. Anyway, thanks very much to Tom and to Kevin, and I hope you've enjoyed this latest deep dive into the game. We'll be back with a look at the final later in the week.